We've seen that the strongest types of cadences are 4-5-1 or 2-5-1. I've moved to the key of F here, so in the key of F that would be B flat C F, or a standard substitute for the 4 chord is the 2 minor chord, so we'd have G minor C F, and that goes through the cycle of fourths, so we get that strong root movement. But we're going to look at some alternate types of cadences and precadences that can be used to add variety. Here in the key of F, we're going to look at a half cadence, which goes from the 4 chord to the 1 chord in second inversion to the dominant chord. So it's not really resolved, and then the pattern will repeat here. So it still leaves you hanging a bit. So it doesn't quite resolve. And then it finally hits the F. That's the beginning of the next section. So that's a half cadence. Now the next one we're going to look at is called a plagal cadence, and this is also often referred to as an amen cadence. It's used in gospel music a lot. And instead of 5-1, which is dominant to tonic, the strongest movement, it's the 4-1, the subdominant to 1. So we're going 4-1. This one, in this case, in F, is B flat to F. Come up with the plagal cadence. Has that gospel-y kind of feel. So you can use that in all kinds of different rhythmic contexts and offset the 1 and 4 movement, but that's a plagal cadence or amen cadence. Now the next one is called a deceptive cadence. There's lots of different ways of doing this, but basically when we hear that dominant chord, we expect it to lead back to the tonic, but when it goes somewhere else other than the tonic, we call that a deceptive cadence because it's leading the ear to one place, but then shifting gears at the end and going somewhere different. So in the key of F, we have the 2-5. We expect to go back to 1, which I do here the first time. But then, instead of going back to the 1, I'm going to the 6 chord, the D minor. So it's a nice, interesting shift, and it leads you away. So here we have the what's called full cadence or authentic cadence, 2-5-1, and then deceptive because it leads you somewhere else. And you can also use a nice little passing chord in here and go C sharp diminished up to the D minor if you wanted to get that kind of bass and harmonic movement if it fit your melody. Let's look at the next variation we have here, and this is a minor plagal cadence. So this is when we're going to the 4 chord, but instead of going 4-1, we're going 4 minor 1. And the Beatles used this a lot when they went from the 1 to the 4 chord, and then the 4 minor, which is kind of a replacement for the dominant chord, back to 1. So let's listen to this. So that's a nice kind of mixed mode cadence. We're mixing up major and minor here, but it's a very nice substitution, B flat minor instead of the C or C7, which would lead back to the tonic here. That's a minor plagal cadence. And now let's look at another variation of that. And this is a more elaborate version of the minor plagal cadence. It's also sometimes referred to as the backdoor cadence. So instead of going 4 minor to 1, we go 4 minor 7, and we go up a fourth to the dominant version, which is E flat 7, the dominant chord that it leads to, and then back to F. So it's a minor plagal cadence because the relative major of F is A flat. So we're borrowing from the key of A flat here. In that B flat minor 7, E flat 7 is the 2-5 in the key of A flat. So we're sort of borrowing from that key, but then jumping back to F instead. So minor plagal cadence going 4 minor 7 to the flat 7, dominant 7 to 1. So let's hear what this sounds like. So I've played through it twice here, but basically this is acting as a different type of cadence leading back to 1. We're 4 here, we could easily just go C for the whole bar. That would be the vanilla way to do it, but this is another type, the backdoor cadence, 4 minor 7, flat 7 to 1. Now the next variation that we have, we're getting into precadences now, is a standard sort of precadential progression. And what we're doing is here, again, I'm going up to the 4 chord and then jumping to the flat 7 dominant chord, like we saw recently in the last example. But instead of jumping back to the tonic, it's precadential because it's leading to another cadential progression, 3, 6, 2, 5, back to 1. And here we're also using what are called secondary dominants. We have this D7 going to the G minor 7. So this is a secondary dominant in that this is a 2-5 leading to here. So this dominant is leading to there. So it's precadential because we have this alleged cadence, but it's leading to a pattern that's going into a cadence rather than leading to the actual tonic. Let's listen. And I like the movement of a tritone here in the bass, the E flat 7 to the A. It's a nice strong color in that key of F. We lead from the flat 7 to the 3rd, so this is a nice strong cycle of fourths cadence that we're leading into from this precadential progression. Let's look at another example. And here we have a precadential progression that's starting on the 4 chord, which is the standard way. There's 2 ways to use precadences. We start on the 4 chord usually or the 2 chord. So here in the key of F, I'm just doing the cadential part or the precadential part here. I'm skipping out the beginning here just to really focus in on what's important. So in the key of F, we're starting on the 4 chord, and instead of going to that E flat 7, instead I'm going up using a passing chord, the B diminished, to the 1 chord with the 5 in the bass, to the 6 dominant 7, and then the 2, 5, 1. Let's listen to this. So it's precadential starting on the 4, and it's precadential because it's leading up to this cadence here. We're going B flat, B diminished. We could be going right to home to the 1 chord and landing there, but it's leading up to another cadence. So precadential using passing chords. And then the next one I want to show you is a precadence starting on the 2 chord, and this is instead of the 4 chord, but on the 2 chord, and again using this notion of a passing chord to lead up to a full cadence. And the one last variation I want to show here is a precadential progression, but it's using the circle of fifths rather than passing chords. But basically we're going 2, 5, and then instead of going to 1, we're going 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. So it's using cycle of fifths or fourths, and it's precadential in that it's kind of like a false cadence. It's leading into what becomes the authentic cadence at the end. So there's a nice little palette of devices you can use to vary up your cadences. See you for more in the next video.